Hello everyone, I am Maulidia Putri Megawati with my partner Syahla Aina Maghfirah. We are here to present our literary work analysis of the short story Yolanda, which is written by Oscar Casares. First, we are going to discuss the main elements of the short story. The first element is characters and the characterization. So here we only focus on the two main characters and one minor character in the story. The characters we are going to discuss are the narrator, Yolanda, and Frank. The first character in the story is the narrator, whose name is never revealed. The narrator is the main character in the story. He is also the protagonist. He is told as a 36-year-old man who cannot forget his childhood love. The second character is Yolanda Castro. She is the central character and also the main character in the story. She is a beautiful woman with long black hair, light brown skin, and green eyes. She is the wife of the character named Frank, and also the woman the narrator adores and admires. She is a patient and helpful woman, but as the story progresses, she becomes deceitful and dishonest. The last character is Frank, who is the husband of Yolanda. He is the minor character and the antagonist in the story. He is a short and squatty man with thick eyebrows and black-gray hair. He is an overprotective, controlling, underestimating, distrustful, unkind, and rude husband of Yolanda. The second element is the setting. The story took place in Brownsville, Texas. It is shown from the passage. Frank pulled up on our street in a U-Haul he had driven all the way from California to Texas. And, when you could sit at a Brownsville coffee shop and not worry about getting it in the back while you ate your menudo. From the time setting, the author doesn't specify the time period of the story. But we can know that the story happened about more than 20 years ago when the narrator was just 12 years old. It is shown from the passage, I was only 12 years old when Frank and Yolanda Castro moved into the beach house with green trim. And I'm talking about more than 20 years ago now. Well, the next element will be presented by my partner Syahla.
My name is Syahla Maghfirah, and now I'm going to share our analysis about the third element, which is Yolanda's plot. So the exposition is when the narrator was only 12 years old, a married couple, Frank and Yolanda, moved into the beach house with green trim next to his house. The racing action is when Frank didn't want his wife working at HEB or any other place for that matter. The climax is when one night the narrator heard Frank's voice loud and clear, wanting an answer about a phone number, something about a customer he'd seen Yolanda talking to a couple of days earlier. The following action is when the narrator heard footsteps and a tapping on his window. It was Yolanda whispering, "Open it, open it." The resolution is in the narrator's bed, the one with the Dallas Cowboy pillows and covers, Yolanda and he were safe from Frank or anybody else that might try to hurt them. Yolanda ended up leaving Frank for a man who worked for one of the shampoo companies. The next element is narrative perspective. The story uses the first-person point of view. The narrator directly experienced and involved in the story. He tells the story to the reader from his perspective. He was around 36 years old at the time when he retold about his childhood. The next is topic question and answer. The topic question is, what are the personalities of Frank that portray him as a bad husband? The answer is controlling and overprotective, underestimating, distrustful, unkind, and rude or abusive. The next will be explained by Maulidia.
The first character trait that portrays Frank has bad husband quality is that he is such controlling. In the third paragraph of the story, we are told that Frank Castro didn't want his wife working at HEB or any other place for that matter. This is one proof how Frank takes control of Yolanda. Another evidence of Frank who is controlling and overprotective is when he didn't allow Yolanda learn to drive and said that she had no business driving a car around town. Besides that, a statement added in the story which reads, "This was about the time when Frank said that from now on he would take Yolanda to work in the morning, no matter how out of the way it was for him, or the fact that he and my mother were always pulling out of the driveway at the same time." This reinforces that Frank is very overprotective and controlling. As we know, basically it is essential to listen and respect our partner's opinions in the relationship. As a good husband, he should be able to support his wife's desire, choices, and goals. But Frank does the opposite, which is a bad thing in marriage relationship. He disregards her wife's opinion and decides to argue with her to maintain what he wants or the rules he makes. It seems like what Yolanda says or wants is never respected, whereas in fact Yolanda also has the right to make choices and do what she wants, but she lost that right because of her own husband. Yolanda seems isolated in the world her husband created, and she lost her freedom, and Frank seems to treat his wife like some kind of prisoner. Accordingly, based on some evidence that we get from the statements in the story, we can conclude that Frank is a controlling and overprotective type of husband. The second character trait of Frank that portrays him as a husband is underestimating. In the third paragraph, we are told that I heard Frank yell something in Spanish about how no woman in his family had ever worked behind a cosmetics counter selling lipstick. From that statement, we can say that it shows that Frank underestimated Yolanda's choice to work at the store. It seems that he looks down on a woman who works in a cosmetic shop. He seems to see that it is inappropriate for women to work in such a place, cosmetic store selling makeup. He even compares Yolanda to his family, although he doesn't say verbally that Yolanda is no better than his family, but it shows that he also indirectly looks down on Yolanda and demeans her self-esteem that must have hurt her feelings. With Frank's way of talking to her in such a harsh manner, she might even consider it an insult to her. When Frank looks down on Yolanda's choices or things he wanted to do, and compares her to others, he circumstantially demanded Yolanda to follow the standards he had, in any case including work. As a good husband, if he assumes his wife's choice or wish to be inappropriate, he should convey it gently and carefully by not forgetting to consider her feelings. He also doesn't need to compare his wife with other people because this will actually hurt her and can cause new problems in the relationship. But on the contrary, Frank didn't do it all because he seemed to look down on Yolanda. The third bad husband quality that Frank has is distrust. We can imply that based on the statement in the 14th paragraph. It is stated that a week or two went by and then my mother told my father that Frank had started showing up at the store in the middle of the day, usually during his lunch hour, but sometimes also at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. He wouldn't talk to Yolanda, but instead just hang out by the magazine rack, pretending to read a wrestling magazine. As we know, trust is the main key in a relationship, but how Frank treats Yolanda by showing up at Yolanda's workplace and watching her shows that he is a distrustful husband. He doesn't trust Yolanda and has suspicions about her. Because of the suspicious, he seems to spy on her in order to make sure that his wife will not misbehave or betray him when she is not with him, which actually makes Yolanda uncomfortable. What he does is actually not the right and wise decision. As a good husband, if there is an issue that he wants to talk about or something that he wants to know about, he should communicate it directly with his wife carefully. As we know, trust from both partners are the pillars that hold a good relationship. When one of these pillars shakes, of course, it will affect the other pillars and cause the building to collapse. Hence, the relationship that is not built with the trust that Frank shows through his attitude toward his wife Yolanda, it can trigger a big problem that can disturb or even break the relationship between the two.
So the first bad character that Frank has is unkind. In the sixth paragraph, it is stated that he had this thing about his yard where he didn't want anybody getting near it. We found this out one day when Looney and I were throwing the football around in the street. Looney was showing off and he threw the ball over my head, way over, and it landed in Frank's yard. When I was getting the ball, Frank opened the front door and yelled something about it being private property. Then he went over, turned on the hose, and started watering his yard and half in the street in front of his yard. So the thing that we want to highlight here is how he treats children, as we know him as a man who's also parent. He shouldn't behave like that. And Frank should be able to understand the habit of children who like to play around. But how he responds to this, it seems less wise because he acts a bit harshly, and it shows that he's such an unkind person. Lastly, the bad personality that Frank has is rude. It is stated that that night I heard Frank's voice loud and clear. He wanted answer. Frank shouldn't have his voice that loud that the narrator even can hurt him. If he wanted answer, he can ask Yolanda nicely and soft, because it can hurt Yolanda's feeling if Frank kept yelling at her like that every time they had fight. Another evidence that Frank is rude is also stated that something shattered against the wall and then a few seconds later Yolanda screamed. And there was another scream and then the sound of back door slamming. I looked out of my window and saw Frank Castro chase Yolanda into their backyard. Frank's ways of communicating with Yolanda to solve problems show that he's a rude, abusive husband. When when discussing problems with his wife, he tends to act harshly by venting his anger through objects around him or even committing physical abuse. All of this Frank's treatment to Yolanda are the things that included to the trait of the abusive behavior. In a marriage relationship, when there are abusive behavior between partners like Frank to Yolanda, this will lead to a toxic relationship. I think that's all from our group.
I hope that you can understand our presentation well, and we would also like to thank you for taking the time to watch our presentation. Don't forget to give us your question or comment on Sipajar.